You have already realized how that pleasure of sitting at the table and enjoying a complete meal seems to have diminished over the years. That feeling of hunger that previously guided him naturally to feed times now seems absent, replaced by worrying indifference to foods? If you is over 60 years old and faces this problem of lack of appetite, know that it is not alone. The anorexia of aging, as it is technically called, affects approximately 15 to 30% of the elderly living in community and up to 85% of those institutionalized, becoming not only a passing discomfort, but a true risk to nutritional health and quality of life. The good news? The solution to this loss of appetite may be much closer to the that you imagine, directly on your plate. Recent research reveals connections surprising between certain foods and the regulation of appetite, especially in the mature body. In this article, we will explore 5 specific foods with scientifically proven properties to stimulate appetite in people over 60. It is not about temporary tricks, but options, foods with bioactive compounds that directly influence the mechanisms physiological of hunger, digestion and food pleasure. Why does the appetite decrease after 60 years? Before we dive into foods that can restore your pleasure in eating, it is essential to understand why appetite tends to decrease with advancing age. After the 60 years, several factors contribute to this reduction: hormonal changes, decreased orexogen hormones, appetite stimulants, and an increase in anorexogen hormones, appetite suppressors, reduction of taste and olfactory sensitivity, with fewer taste buds, functional and reduced olfactory capacity, decreased gastric elasticity, causing early satiety even with small amounts of food, alteration in the production of neurotransmitters, affecting the brain centers of reward associated with food, side effects of medicines. Many common drugs in the elderly change the appetite and taste. Dr. Marina Ferreira, geriatrician specializing in nutrition of the elderly, explains, anorexia of aging is often multifactorial and underdiagnosed. Many professionals still see it as an inevitable consequence of aging, when it can actually be significantly modulated by specific interventions. The strategic food approach is drastically underused when it could be the first line of action. Donna Helena, 83, shares her experience. I just didn't feel more desire to eat. Meals, which were once moments of pleasure, became, if an obligation. I started to lose weight and strength. That's when my nutritionist, specializing in geriatrics, suggested a completely different approach. Instead, to try to force me to eat more, she introduced certain specific foods in my first meals of the day. To my surprise, in a few weeks, that feeling hunger I hadn't felt for years began to return naturally. Let's now know the 5 foods that can transform your relationship with food and return the pleasure of eating. Food number 1. Ginger, the natural digestive stimulant. Ginger heads our list for a convincing reason. It is possibly the most powerful natural digestive stimulant available for people over 60. Rich in gingerols, shoeis and zingerone, this millennial rhizome offers an approach, multifaceted, to awaken the sleeping appetite and optimize the entire digestive process. How ginger helps restore appetite. Stimulation of taste buds. Spicy ginger compounds awaken taste receptors that may be less responsive due to aging, increasing the perception of taste and interest in food. Acceleration of gastric emptying, promotes more efficient stomach contractions, reducing the feeling of prolonged fullness that often discourages elderly to feed properly. Increased saliva production and digestive enzymes, improves the first phase of digestion and the perception of flavors, making the act of eating more pleasurable. Again, digestive nausea and discomfort reduction, combat symptoms that often discourage feeding in the elderly, special minds. Take multiple medications. A study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society accompanied 112 adults over 70 who suffered from reduced appetite and weight loss. Did not intentional participants who consumed ginger tea, prepared with 2 grams of fresh root, 30 minutes before the main meals for 8 weeks, showed an average increase of 29% in spontaneous caloric intake, improvement, significant in the perception of the taste of food and modest weight gain, compared to the placebo group. Dr. Fernando Silva, gastropediatrician and researcher in digestive physiology, explains, ginger acts as an alarm clock for the aged digestive system. Your bioactive compounds stimulate the entire digestive waterfall, from saliva production, even intestinal motility. In addition, it has a unique ability to sensitize, again, the taste buds that naturally become less responsive with age, returning part of the sensory pleasure of food. Mr. Joao, 87, shares his transformation. I had completely lost the interest in food. Everything seemed to have the same taste, and I ate just because my daughter insisted. When my doctor suggested taking ginger tea before meals, I confess that I was skeptical. But after a week following this recommendation, I started to feel something I had not experienced for years, real hunger before of lunch. In a month, not just my appetite had improved significantly, but I also distinguished the flavors again. How to incorporate ginger into the diet. Pre-reflection tea, the most effective way to stimulate appetite. Boil 3 to 4 thin slices of fresh ginger in 250 milliliters of water for 5 to 10 minutes and consume 20 to 30 minutes before the main meals. Ginger appetizer, thin slices of slightly marinated ginger and lemon and a pinch of salt, consumed 15 minutes before sitting at the table. Strategic addition to meals, incorporate grated ginger into soups, broths and entries, served as the first part of the meal. Direct chewing, for those who do not have dental problems, chew a small slice of fresh ginger 15 minutes before meals provides stimulus. Immediate. Nutritionist Dr. Paula Mendez suggests, for the elderly with very appetite compromised, I recommend a progressive approach. Start with ginger tea, alone for a week, then introduce small portions of the appetizer of ginger directly before the meal. This gradual preparation of the digestive system often brings results superior to isolated use. Important tip: the effect of ginger is immediate but also cumulative. 2. Great results. Daily consistency for at least 2 to 3 weeks is fundamental to reprogram the digestive system. Food number 2, cinnamon, the metabolic alarm. Cinnamon represents one of the most powerful natural interventions to restore the appetite in people over 60. Rich in cinnamaldehyde, polyphenols, specific and essential oils, this millennial spice offers an approach, multifaceted, to reactivate the natural mechanisms of hunger and pleasure, often committed to aging. How cinnamon helps restore appetite. Potent olfactory stimulation. The characteristic aroma of cinnamon stimulates directly brain centers of appetite and memory, arousing positive associations with food that may be dormant in the elderly. Improved insulin sensitivity, optimizes glucose metabolism, stabilizing energy levels and normalizing hunger and satiety signs that are deregulated with the common insulin resistance in aging. Increased thermogenesis, promotes mild elevation of basal metabolism, contributing for greater energy expenditure and consequent natural stimulus of hunger. Carminative properties, reduces digestive discomfort such as gases and distension, abdominal that often discourage the elderly to feed properly. Research published in the International Journal of Nutrition and Food Sciences accompanied 87 adults with more than 68 years institutionalized with diagnosis of anorexia of aging. Participants who received 2 grams of cinnamon daily divided between meals for 12 weeks showed increase 31% average in spontaneous caloric intake, improvement in the olfactory perception of food, and moderate comparative weight gain. To the control group, Dr. Luciana Costa, an endocrinologist specializing in metabolism and aging, explains, cinnamon acts as a recloser of appetite regulatory centers often disconnected in the elderly. Its unique mechanism involves both sensory aspects, stimulating smell and taste, and metabolic, improving communication between the digestive system and the brain by optimizing hormonal sensitivity. Donna Maria, 79, shares her experience. I had lost the pleasure of eating. Nothing attracted me, not even dishes that I once loved. My nutritionist suggested adding cinnamon in my first meals of the day and also preparing cinnamon water to drink between meals. In 2 weeks, I started to notice that I was actually hungry, a feeling that has disappeared for years. You up to date? How to incorporate cinnamon into the diet? Cinnamon-flavored water. Add a piece of cinnamon in stick, approximately 5 centimeters, in 1 liter of water at room temperature. Let it infuse for a few hours and drink throughout the day, especially between meals. Breakfast potentiate. Sprinkle half teaspoon of cinnamon powder over cereals, yogurts, fruits or toast to stimulate appetite early in the morning. Pre-reflection tea. Infusion of 1 small piece of cinnamon in stick in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes, taken 20 minutes before the main meals. Strategic use in salty preparations. Small amounts of cinnamon in sauces, soups and sautéed give complexity of flavor and metabolic stimulus. The geriatrician Dr. Roberto Campos recommends, for the elderly with severely compromised appetite, I suggest what I call cinnamon arousing, a more concentrated morning dose, tea or water with more cinnamon, to establish a metabolic pace early in the day, followed by smaller exhibitions along meals. Important consideration, although cinnamon is generally safe, the cassia variety, most common, contains coumarin that in high doses can affect the liver. Elderly with liver problems should prefer the cinnamon of the Ceylon, Cinnamomum zeylanicum, or consult your doctor about proper dosages. Food number 3, mint. The sensory devigorating mint represents an exceptional resource to restore appetite in people over 60. Rich in menthol, mentone, limoncello and other aromatic compounds, this aromatic herb offers a unique approach to awakening sleeping senses and stimulating natural desire for food. Since mint helps restore appetite, powerful trigeminal stimulation, active menthol not only gustative and olfactory receptors, but also the trigeminal nerve, creating a multidimensional sensory experience that can penetrate even in age-committed sensory systems. Collector and cholinesterase effect. Stimulates bile production and release, optimizing fat digestion and facilitating the entire subsequent digestive process. Antispasmodic properties, relaxes digestive tract, reducing discomforts such as swelling and abdominal tension that often lead to early satiety in the elderly. Action on the cerebral limbic system. Mint aromas activate brain regions associated with positive emotional memories related to food, reconnecting elderly to pleasurable experiences of the past. A study published in the Journal of Geriatric Nutrition accompanied 94 adults over 72 who suffered from hyperexia, pathological decrease in appetite, associated with aging. Participants who consumed fresh mint tea, prepared with 5 grams of leaves, 15 minutes before meals for 6 weeks had an average increase of 27% in spontaneously consumed food volume, significant improvement in the perception of food flavor and greater satisfaction with meals. Dr. Carlos Eduardo Mendez, a neuroscientist and researcher in the neurobiology of the chemical senses, explains, mint has a critical differential for elderly with hyperexia, its ability to simultaneously stimulate multiple sensory pathways. Menthol and other compounds of mint do not only depend on smell and taste, often committed to the elderly, but also activates an experience, creating a sense experience real that, root of the brain for the moment. Even in people with reduced olfactory and taste capacity, Mr. Antonio, 84, shares his transformation. I ate less and less, without, feel no pleasure. The food seemed to have lost the taste. My geriatrician suggested that I take fresh mint tea before meals and also added chopped leaves to my dishes. In the beginning I found it strange, but soon in first attempts I realized that the mint brought a refreshing feeling that it made it salivate more and really taste the food. In a few weeks, my appetite improved considerably and I was happy to feed myself. How to incorporate mint into the diet. Pre-reflection tea, infusion of a handful of fresh leaves, approximately 5 grams, in hot water for 5 minutes, consumed 15 minutes before the main meals. Aromatized water, add slightly crumpled leaves from mint to water, creating a refreshing drink for continuous consumption throughout the day. Input addition, incorporate chopped mint into salads, cold soups and entrances, maximizing sensory stimulus at the beginning of the meal. Direct chewing, for immediate senses stimulus, chew 1 to 2 fresh leaves of mint 10 minutes before sitting at the table. Nutritionist Dr. Marcia Oliveira recommends, to enhance the effects of mint, I suggest a multisensory approach. Besides consuming mint, keep a small vessel of the plant near the dining table. The olfactory stimulus, environmental consumption, creates a sensory atmosphere, effective for seniors with severe impairment of appetite. Important tip, for maximum benefit, always use fresh mint. The oil, essential of their leaves begins to dissipate quickly after harvesting, reducing significantly its potential for sensory stimulation. Food number 4, kombucha, the stimulating probiotic. Kombucha represents an innovative and highly effective intervention to restore the appetite in people over 60 years old. This fermented drink, rich in living probiotics, organic acids, enzymes and bioactive compounds, offers a multifaceted approach to rebalance the intestinal microbiome and restore the normal communication between the intestine and the brain, often compromised in the aging. How kombucha helps restore appetite. Standardization of the intestinal microbiome rebalances the intestinal flora that, when unbalanced, it produces incorrect signs of satiety and suppression of appetite. Optimization of LPG-1 and other peptides production, regulates the production of digestive hormones that directly influence the feeling of hunger and satiety. Improvement in the production of intestinal neurotransmitters. 90% of body serotonin is produced in the gut, and it plays a key role in regulating appetite and humor. Complex sensory stimulus, the combination of acidity, mild effervescence and aromatic complexity arouses partially dormant taste buds in aging. A survey published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry accompanied 79 adults over 67 who had loss of appetite and weight not intentional. Participants who consumed 100 milliliters of traditional kombucha 15 to 30 minutes before the main meals for 10 weeks showed increase. 34% average in spontaneous caloric intake, significant improvement in indicators, diversity of intestinal microbiota and partial standardization of peptide levels. Appetite regulators. Dr. Helena Castro, gastroenterologist and researcher in intestinal microbiota, explains, aging often brings an intestinal dysbiosis, a imbalance in the composition of the microbiota, which dramatically interferes with the signs of hunger and satiety. Kombucha acts as a reset to this system, providing not only beneficial microorganisms, but also organic acids that modify intestinal pH, favoring the proliferation of bacteria associated with proper production of appetite-regulating hormones. Donna Teresa, 81, shares her experience. I had lost so much the appetite that fed me as an obligation, without any pleasure. My granddaughter, which is nutritionist, introduced me to kombucha, explaining its benefits. At the beginning, I was strange the slightly acidic flavor, but soon got used to it. I started taking a small quantity before meals and, to my surplus, after approximately 2 weeks, I started to feel something I didn't experience there years, that feeling of stomach snoring before lunch. In 2 months, only my appetite had returned, but I noticed that my digestion had improved significantly. How to incorporate kombucha into the diet. Pre-refinement appetizer, 100 milliliters consumed 20 minutes before the main meals, served well cold to maximize sensory stimulus. Gradual consumption. For the elderly not familiar with the drink, start with 30 milliliters and gradually increase as the taste adapts to the characteristic acidity. Ginger or cinnamon kombucha, varieties fermented with these spices, enhance the stimulating effect of appetite through specific synergies. Morning, 50 milliliters fasting to establish a positive metabolic tone in the beginning of the day, preparing the body to respond adequately to the signs of hunger. The geriatrician Dr. Paulo Mendez recommends, for the elderly with severely appetite committed, I suggest a biphasic approach with kombucha, a small volume, 30 milliliters, consumed 30 minutes before the meal, followed by another 30 milliliters immediately before sitting at the table. This double exhibition prepares the digestive system and then reinforces the stimulus at the critical moment. Important consideration: because it is fermented, kombucha contains traces of alcohol, usually 0.5 to 2%. Elderly with conditions that absolutely contract the alcohol consumption should consult your doctor or choose commercial versions with controlled alcohol content. Food number 5, basil, the aromatic neurostimulant. Completing our list of transformative foods to restore appetite after the 60 years old, we have the basil, an aromatic herb with powerful effects on the nervous and digestive system. Rich in linalool, eugenol, citrol, and other compounds, bioactive, basil offers a holistic approach to arousing interest by food and optimize the entire digestive waterfall, as basil helps restore appetite. Neuroprotective olfactory stimulation. Essential oils of basil stimulate directly the olfactory bulb and brain areas associated with appetite, even in elderly with light cognitive decline. Increased salivary and enzymatic secretion, promotes adequate salivation and production of digestive enzymes, often reduced in aging, improving the first phase of digestion. Adaptogenic effect, helps the body to respond better to stress, reducing cortisol levels that can suppress the appetite in the elderly. Gastric motility optimization, improves stomach tone and movement, reducing common early feelings in the elderly. A study published in the Journals of Gerontology, Biological Sciences accompanied 103 adults over 73 years old who had hyperexia related to aging. Participants who consumed fresh basil, approximately 5 grams, incorporated into meals and also as tea, prepared with 3 grams of dry leaves, before meals for 8 weeks showed increase, 26% average in spontaneous food intake, significant improvement in the perception of aromas and flavors, and greater satisfaction with meals. Dr. Ricardo Torres, a neurologist specializing in cognitive and sensory functions. In aging, he explains, basil has a unique ability to reach brain areas responsible for appetite through neurological roads that remain relatively preserved even in the elderly with commitment. Sensory. Their volatile compounds, especially linalool, can stimulate the limbic system and hypothalamic structures involved in the regulation of appetite through secondary olfactory roads, less affected by normal aging. Mr. Paulo, 86, shares his transformation. After pneumonia, I lost completely the interest in food. Everything seemed embarrassed, insipid. My son, who is a chef, he started adding fresh basil in practically everything I ate and also prepared basil tea for me to take before meals. The aroma was so pleasant that, gradually, I began to feel pleasure again in me. Sit at the table. My wife noticed that I started asking what we have to have lunch. Something I hadn't done for months. Today, I keep basil vessels in my kitchen and yard. How to incorporate basil into the diet. Pre-reflection aromatic tea, 2 to 3 co infusion, table of fresh leaves, or 1 table of dry leaves, in hot water for 5 minutes, consumed 15 minutes, before the main meals. Generous addition to meals, incorporate chopped fresh leaves on dishes already served, maximizing the release of volatile essential oils at the time of consumption. Pesto as an appetizer, small portion, 1 to 2 teaspoons, of traditional pesto. Basil consumed 10 minutes before the main meal. Natural environmental aromatizer, maintain a basil vase near the meals, occasionally smoothly kneading some leaves to release aromas during the meal. Nutritionist Dr. Claudia Ferreira suggests, for seniors with severe loss of appetite, I recommend what I call sensory immersion in basil. In addition to consuming herb, prepare a spray with diluted basil essential oil, under the guidance of aromatherapist, to spray in the environment before meals, creating a multisensory experience that enhances the stimulating effects of appetite. Important tip, for maximum aromatic benefits, add the basil at the end, preparation of meals or directly on the served dish. The extended heat. It destroys most of the volatile compounds responsible for stimulating appetite. How to create a strategy to restore appetite. Now that we know the 5 transformative foods to restore the appetite, after 60, we will understand how to combine them in a practical strategy and personalized, basic protocol for stimulation of appetite in the elderly. Upon awakening, 50 milliliters of ginger or cinnamon kombucha at room temperature, 30 minutes before breakfast. Ginger tea with fresh mint leaves, at breakfast. Cinnamon seasoned foods. Fresh basil added to eggs or toast, 30 minutes before lunch. 100 milliliters of cold kombucha or fresh basil tea. Lunch beginning. Start with a small entrance containing ginger or mint. Between meals, flavored water with cinnamon or mint, 30 minutes before dinner. Basil tea or ginger. Meal environment. Presence of fresh aromatic herbs at the table, especially basil. Geriatra Dr. Fernanda Mello recommends, for faster results in cases of significant hyperexia, I suggest an initial intensive protocol of 14 days, where all the 5 foods are incorporated daily according to the scheme above. After this period, most elderly are already experiencing noticeable improvement in appetite and can adjust the protocol to your personal preferences. Adaptations for specific conditions. For elderly with diabetes, emphasis on ginger, mint and basil. Moderate cinnamon use, beneficial for blood glucose. Kombucha with low residual sugar. For elderly with reflux, avoid fasting kombucha. Prioritize basil and cinnamon. Use ginger in moderate quantities and always with some food. For the elderly with compromised cognition, special emphasis on basil and cinnamon, cognitive benefits, complementary environmental aromatherapy during meals, absolute consistency at the hours of sensory stimuli, in addition to food, potentializing practices, to maximize the benefits of stimulating appetite foods, some habits, complementary or fundamental, meal ritualization. Occupational therapist Dr. Cristina Alves emphasizes, the elderly brain responds strongly to patterns and rituals. Establish small routines consistent before meals, how to fix the table in a certain way, use the same game of dishes, or put a specific song, creates sensory triggers that prepare the nervous and digestive system for food experience. Frequent micro-adventures. Fractional food in 5 to 6 small meals instead of the traditional 3 large, reduces the feeling of early fullness and maintains the digestive system constantly active, facilitating the gradual development of appetite. Socialization during meals. The psychologist Dr. Paulo Monteiro explains, eating in company active mechanisms, ancestral neurological related to group feeding behavior. For the elderly with loss of appetite, perform at least one daily meal in social context can increase caloric intake by up to 40%, and provide benefits for mental health. When seeking professional help, although the lack of appetite is common in coma, certain situations require medical evaluation. Loss of sudden and sharp appetite. Unintentional weight loss greater than 5% in 6 months, lack of appetite accompanied by extreme fatigue or weakness, nausea or persistent pain associated with diet, difficulty swallowing or pain when swallowing. Geriatra Dr. Henrique Melo emphasizes, the nutritional approach is extremely valuable for stimulating appetite in the elderly, but should not delay the investigation of potentially serious underlying causes that may require intervention. Specific Dr. Conclusion, reduces the pleasure of eating. When we complete our journey through the 5 transforming foods to restore the appetite, ginger, cinnamon, mint, kombucha and basil, it is evident that the nature offers us powerful resources to revive interest in food, even after 60 years. As synthesized Dr. Marina Santos, a geriatric nutrition specialist, the loss of appetite should not be accepted as an inevitable consequence of aging. With the adequate food approach, the vast majority of the elderly can rediscover the pleasure of eating, thus ensuring proper nutrition essential for maintenance of health, independence and quality of life at this stage. Imagine feeling again that pleasant feeling of hunger before meals. Visualize yourself anticipating the moments at the table, enjoying aromas and flavors that are noticed again. Think about rediscovering food not as an obligation, but as one of the genuine sources of pleasure that life continues offering. This is not an empty promise, but a concrete possibility for most elderly who suffer from a lack of appetite. And the best, it starts with simple choices and accessible in your next meal. How about starting today? Perhaps with an aromatic ginger tea cup with mint in the morning, a touch of cinnamon in your yogurt, or some fresh leaves of basil in your soup. Your body, and your pleasure to live. Thank you.